One thing regarding the recordings, if you click on the channel name, you will get the channel's description on the right-hand side. And there you find information about the procedures for these Sunday seminars, as well as links to information material and the recordings. Here is someone asking about how to make the transition into an RBE reality, how we are actually going ahead to achieve this RBE, and what projects are currently on the go. So currently we have several projects within the core teams. One is the marketing and media contacts team. These teams go out and contact larger companies, radio stations, TV stations, and they also try to appoint meetings or talks on their respective program, either by someone of the Venus Project or Jack and Roxanne themselves. Then we also have the marketing contacts team work on getting contacts in the film industry in support of the major motion picture the Venus Project is doing. And then we have the linguistics team international, and they work not only for the Venus Project, but they support us in translating into, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, currently 84 different languages.
That's correct, Sven, yes. Although some of the teams are larger than others, but we do actually have 84 languages, yeah.
Right, and this is the material that gets translated by the linguistic team, gets translated, it is implemented into the web pages, and then by your language settings you will either get the English version if not yet translated, but as soon as it's translated you will actually be able to read it in your own language.
Yes, once something's translated, we spread it out as much as we can. And we do have YouTube channels and so on and so forth. We are encouraging all the different languages to make their own YouTube channel to put up their final results.
Right, thank you. And we have the writing team currently preparing the TVP magazine, which will be a quarterly issue as an online magazine, where you can find reports on latest technology that the tech research team is looking into, as well as interviews with the several project coordinators and also information material around the project, and any interviews that have been held during the last or while the in preparation of the magazine, and once the next issue is actually ready to go, which we are aiming to currently at a January release, and then we will do a quarterly update. Then we have the web development team, who's actually extending our current websites and adding additional functionality and information. And just recently we had someone from the writing team prepare the official press kit for the Venus Project, which you can download on the TVP main website, which is thevenusproject.com, and there on the right hand side you will find the press kit to download. You can freely download them and print them and hand them out, or take them for your own information. And we have just recently started going into the software development, and we have currently a team of researchers making preparations to start the real software development for currently the CORCEN project. I was talking about this 2 weeks ago. If you want to have some details, you can listen to the past recording from then. Right, the next question's regarding the Thrive movement. I must admit I haven't heard from that yet, so I would like you to send that questions, as I asked before, to questions@thevenusproject.com. And I just got another question. How should we approach TV stations or radios? That is basically what the media marketing team is doing. And if you want to have radio station or TV station connected, especially within your region, what you can do is write their address and contact details and some information about the station in particular, and send them to mediacontacts@thevenusproject.com. There's another question. What does Jacques think about the directors from our society, such as competitive sports video games, and how do we change the people who are immersed into that. Competition is something that doesn't produce any benefit to society. And we have been talking about this in the past a lot, so I'll give you just a brief overview. As this topic was actually brought up 2 weeks ago, but anyways, how do we approach these people? Provide alternatives to them. So just don't try to force them to stop what they're doing. Many of these things that cause competitive behavior are actually done because people lack alternatives. And also they are conditioned in this competitive thinking, and they just don't know it better. So it's all coming down to education. Okay, another one. Someone who's asking why the Venus Project is collecting money to actually produce a movie about not using money, basically. Let me first focus on that money thing. We are actually advocating a world where money is not needed. That doesn't mean that we fight the monetary system. The monetary system is a system we are living in today. So we have to deal with the rules within that system. What we are trying to do is, out of the existing system, using the means of this existing system, which is money, we try to create a new system that emerges out of it. And therefore, we have to live with our environment and actually deal with money, use money to make this idea come true. And once more and more people get educated about an RBE and the Venus Project, then they will understand that there is an alternative, and more people will actually join in the thinking and acting within the RBE. So over time, the monetary system is just rendered obsolete. So once more and more people actually join in the way of life that you have within a resource-based economy, then they just stop using money, and so the money system is obsolete by that time. So in regards to collecting money to make that movie, we are not doing, or we are not planning on doing a real small kind of video that we do on YouTube. We are talking about a major motion picture, which is shown or shall be shown throughout cinemas in the whole world. And the script is basically ready. What we currently looking into is getting contacts to script writers and sound artists and the director and their like. And that is what the money is going to be used for. So are there any more questions?
Somebody in the chat is carrying on. I believe his question wasn't answered, possibly. He says the question is not about collecting money or making movies, it's about testing a hypothesis.
Yeah, now I got it. So, yeah, just let me read that. So he's saying the thing I just described is contrary to the principles of the Venus Project. So what about instead focusing on a game model using freeware programs and volunteers to test the RBE hypothesis? First, as with any scientific inquiry, we are currently undergoing design for a game that we are planning to have people live within that RBE. And in regards to that open source, we have talked a lot about this last week, so I would like you to listen to last week's recording as well, please. But I'm going to get into it a bit. Well, to have this properly tested within the open source or freeware domain, we would have to give out real blueprints of what we are actually planning to implement. And I've been talking about this, as I said last week, and currently the Venus Project is not willing to give away these blueprints for either the ideas, concepts, or the social design, as well as designs for any real product. Because on one hand, this would obfuscate the idea behind it, because if you have people in the open source community add their value to it, this would be most probably, due to a lack of education about the Venus Project, lead to a misleading idea, which is not the Venus Project anymore. And you cannot just parse from the Venus project to be released on their own, because what the Venus project provides is a holistic approach, so a complete solution to today's problems and to replace the current system. Does that answer your question? If not, please rephrase your question, send it to Daniel. I'll go into other questions for the time being and get back to you later then. Maybe it's also language barrier, bear with me, I'm not native English. So another question, is there or will there be public record or listing of all the 14 current developers along with what programming languages they know and development environment they have been exposed to? Regarding this information, that is personal information, if these developers that are currently involved with the development or the current research are willing to make these details publicly available, it's up to them. But for us, since we are not taking their information that is provided to us into public from the Venus Project side, there won't be a publication about this, regarding this. There's another question. How can we make institutions like the police and the military to educate themselves in the Venus Project or RBE model to make it easier for them to understand alternative choices to the current system? The thing is, this is my personal opinion now, a policeman or a politician or a soldier, serviceman or whatever is a human being. So you are actually aware of the Venus Project. You educate yourself around the Venus Project and try to understand the ideas behind the project. So if you approach someone, not anyone particular, either in the services or anywhere else, if you approach someone and want to present the ideas of the Venus Project, you should do so without forcing them to listen. You just go ahead and present the information. So, and if they are interested, they get onto it. Otherwise, if they reject you, don't threaten them or force them to listen to you. Just provide them the opportunity to contact you again, but go along. Don't spend your time trying to change one individual's mind in the time that you could use to talk to 10 other people. Right, next question saying, is there already software or technical capabilities of the counting and distribution of all resources as described in the book? What we are currently doing is we do a lot of research on certain latest technologies, and we especially have a team doing this, and luckily we have the coordinator of that team present. So Craig, maybe if you want to pick up this question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question please, Sven?
Whether there is already technology available or technical capabilities in regards to counting and distribution of resources.
It's an interesting subject. There are currently resources available. There are projects in place attempting to do this. But these projects are acting as individuals. What we really need to do in the long term is to collate this information together. Hopefully cloud computing will help in the near future. Currently I don't think we're there yet. But Google, as one example, Google are currently putting this system of information analysis in place. I would like to think they would be pioneers moving forward. We can only wait and see what develops. Currently people are acting as individuals, and that makes it very difficult to access all of that relevant information in one place. And so that's what we'll be looking to do over the future, is to bring people together and to provide a platform, an archive where all of that data can be accessed from the same point.
One thing I'd like to add for this, maybe, if you like.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just want to say that base technology for all of this is available, in broad range. So there are like sensors for everything in every size you could possibly imagine almost. We have the technology, we have fast computers, we have the networks for it, we have the connection, so to say. What we still need is the correlation of all of this. And like Greg said, for example, Google is working on this since the beginning, since they started, because that is what they do, they correlate data. and they are, of course, spreading out in every aspect of society and technology. And the base means for all of this are there already, and what we have to do now is to correlate all of this and get a holistic approach to use the technology right. Because mostly what we see in today's means, like for example, if you, I don't know, I turn around, see my printer standing here, this is not real good technology. This is planned obsolescence, so to say. And if we take a look at real technology, how technology could be used in an optimized way, then we see that this is not a mean of is it possible. It's a mean of when do we begin to implement it, so to say. And this is why we're all here, I think.
Right, thank you. And basically, correlation was actually a buzzword that I want to pick up now. This is basically the CORCEN project. Taking all the technology that is available and bring them together. So what CORCEN stands for is Correlation Center. And this is meant to be the computing core within a worldwide network, integrating everything that is available in regards to resources measured by sensors, production capabilities, everything that's going on within a city, from waste disposal, recycling, back to food production, and their like. So this is all going to be treated and realized using state-of-the-art technology and all brought together within that CORCEN project. Next question is, would the Venus project's resource-based economy simulation made using CryEngine 3 include physics simulation of included structures? Also, would the user be able to change parameters of structures for testing? He's referring to a bridge building game example. What we are trying to achieve with this simulation we are currently planning as one of the minor steps for the CORCEN project together with 3D architecture design teams is to make simulation about what it would be to live within a RBE city. Therefore, we take the most prominent example of one of Jacques' designs, which is the circular city scheme. And the whole city will be designed in a 3D architecture way using CAD and then make a simulation that runs on the CryEngine. And this CryEngine will then hook up to the artificial intelligence system developed by the CORCEN teams. And out of this, we create a simulation that is freely interactive. If there is physics within that simulation, that has to be determined. So that's subject to evaluation in the future. But what you will be able to is you can freely move within that city. You can interact with all appliances throughout the city. You can get a reading on all the measurements like energy consumption, how many people, or scenarios where you can enter the amount of people living in a city and have the values reflect accordingly how that would have impact on consumption and production. So another question is, when this individual went to Venus, he heard Jacques and Roxanne talking about a country that it was about to start to build the first city in. He's asking whether that's on the way now. So currently, we are still waiting for someone to offer a place where to build that first test city. And I don't know any details of what they actually told this individual asking a question here, so I'd rather not go into that because I was not a witness to that discussion. So please postpone this question till next week when hopefully Jacques and Roxanne have solved the technical issues and are back with us. So here's an update on the CryEngine having a high demand on resources. So why not use something that is more friendly towards the average computer? And the CryEngine is, or the decision for CryEngine has been made about half a year ago. So by the time we get to the point where we have to decide on a game engine or some other rendering engine to run the simulation, we might revise that decision for CryEngine and take the latest that is available by the time we get to actually do that release of the simulation. Okay, here is a question regarding the global village construction set. And that individual is saying, in a way, they do something similar to the Venus project. And in terms of developing the machinery to build new cities from scratch. So whether there's a potential partnership here or the Venus project has little relationship. So I know that technical research team is in close contact with the providers of this technology. And Craig, you just pointed out to me during last week that you are actually in contact with their director, and maybe you can give a brief update on that.
Yes, I'm not in contact directly with Marcin. I'm in contact with the European director, Nikolai Georgiev. Those European directors are in direct communication with Marcin and the guys over in the States. They're attempting to start a project off which is Europe-based. That would be a partner project for what Marcin is doing over in the States. But I would suggest that they are not, in fact, providing any tools for city construction. They are, as stated, providing tools for village construction, and there is a significant difference in the type of technology used. Let me give you an example. An earth brick press would not be sufficient for our construction needs in building a large-scale city. So I've discussed these things in detail with Nikolai, and we're agreed that in regard to the technologies that we would use, the tools that would be sufficient for constructing the village construction set or the TVP city, there are significant differences. That said, we also have a number of things in common. So I would like us to remain mutually supportive, but I would like an acknowledgement that there are significant differences.
Right, thank you. So, I don't have any more questions at the moment. And if you feel that I didn't answer your questions properly, please ask again, revising your question. Again, bear in mind I'm not native, so you might change your wording a bit. So here's a question regarding building the first cities of scrap material, for example clay. This will save a lot of money and can be built without large financial investments. So I don't know whether you have had a look at the designs the Venus project is proposing. What I see clay especially useful for may be to pave the way leading to the foundation. But if you have a look at these buildings, especially the smaller ones, they are planned to be made of concrete. And I don't know enough about construction work or about architecture to actually make a good call on clay being used instead of concrete. So I rather think it's not possible to build these structures with clay. And also on the other hand, there is a special idea behind the way this material is actually mixed. So we are planning to have the surface of the building used for heat regulation as well as energy production or heat production, and therefore clay, in my understanding, is not suitable.
One thing I'd like to add on this, referring to what Jack said, and yeah, this is what I'd like to just forward in the way I understand it, so please asking him again if you're unsure. But I understand it as we will mostly be using like composite materials where maybe also clay can be involved because it has certain attributes that we could benefit from. But most things will be, like Sven said, we would like to use the surface of some material directly for heat absorption and so on and energy production. So we need composite materials so we don't have to add up another additional like solar collector onto the roof of a building, for example. It should be all inside one layer, so to say, or at least in a package that can be put onto a building without further efforts in material and so on. And yeah, this is why in most cases there will be, I think, composite materials that have certain attributes combined by the materials that are involved in the composite.
There is a good short video on our YouTube channel that you can look into it, which is called the Venus Project Cities, and there a high-level design of the cities is explained, and also there is a short description on materials used. Go ahead, Craig, please.
Thanks, Sven. Okay, let's arrive at a mutual understanding so that we all get this. The Venus project does propose in the long term to recycle all materials that we are able to do so with. And that is planet-wide. That would be management of the Earth's resources. So yes, we would propose to use recycled materials. But I'll refer back again to the Global Village construction set. It is possible to go to a waste dump, to pick up some scrap metals and put together a tractor that is sufficient for a self-sustaining village. It is not possible to gather those recyclable materials from a local dump for building a complex city design. So what we would be very, very interested in are technologies that can recycle materials on a large scale. There are interesting technologies that are now being released, proposals for recycling all of the plastic that sits in the ocean and reconverting that plastic into usable oil. Now, this type of technology would be very beneficial not only to the Venus project's design, but to the global management of our finite resources. So I would urge, if any of you come across these types of recycling technologies, please email those details to tech.research@thevenusproject.com, and we would certainly consider using any recycling technologies that we have available to us.
Right, thank you, Craig. Just a small addition to that. In the long run, what the Venus project is basically advertising is to abandon the current cities and then take those cities down and reuse that material as well. And maybe leave 1, 2, 3 cities, each country in place to act like a museum. Basically, tear the rest down to use those resources as well, because that also fits in the scheme of recycling. But let me get you back to the next question now. Someone is asking why we don't use Kickstarter to get the funding for the movie. I must admit I don't know what Kickstarter is, so either provide some background information by sending a question to Daniel, including the information, and then I might get back to it, and forward that question to questions@thevenusproject.com so we can do a little research in preparation for that question.
Yeah, I'd like to add, Sven, it's not the first recommendation I've had for Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah, anyways, just forward that question, please. Getting to the next one. The RVE simulation would be about one city ignoring other cities, in that they provide whatever the single city demands. You must understand that we're talking about a simulation. So everything that is out of the scope of one city is also simulated as if it were there. So we simulate the connection to CORCEN, we simulate the connection to all the construction sites that are not within the cities. We are also simulating the connections to resources that are not available to that city, but have to be delivered to that city. So we take care of that as well in this simulation, and definitely in the CORCEN project. Okay, getting back to this game engine question, there's another one. It is not simple to switch a game engine, and it would include reprogramming. Yeah, I do agree, and first of all, we are going to do the 3D design apart from that engine. And by the time we will have to pick an engine, then we will take the latest and best suitable available. And by that time, we will actually start the coding, not before. So the whole 3D is done in CAD, and once that is done, we go ahead and implement it into the game engine to be determined. The next question is whether there is a platform for current developers to speak between each other. And Right, and I don't know where you've seen the large list of developers. Most probably you are referring to our technical database. Let me answer the first question. We use common means of communication that you use on the internet. We have Skype, we use the TeamSpeak server, we use email, we use mailing groups, we use other collaboration tools that are freely available, and nothing special about this. And in regards to the other question of list of developers, we do have a technical database where you can actually sign in if you want to support the Venus project with your skills. If you want to join the design team's projects, you can actually enter your details there. And as soon as we either have within an ongoing project or in a project to be created need for specialists from a certain area, we go against this database and query for several positions that are used on that team, and then we go forward and contact these people that have joined this database. So another one, how does a society living in a resource-based economy manage a sudden situation of non-abundance when we would have to make choices between crucial things that fulfill human needs? What would we do? Let me elaborate a bit further about this. I've been talking about the monetary system rendering itself obsolete. So what this will cause is a lot of professions that are directly related to the monetary system will also become obsolete. These people will have to have something new that they can focus on. And since also science is not anymore dependent on the money, and the patent system will therefore also break down, science is not limited anymore. Will not be limited anymore by that time. So you will actually experience an immense boost in scientific output. And if you come across something that is scarce, then you set scientists onto it, or they will most probably jump onto it willingly on their own, and they will discover something to replace what is missing, or something that is about to become scarce. He's also pointing out NZP project. I haven't heard from that so far. I'll look into it later on, but could you also forward that to the questions at thevenusproject.com email, please, so we can spend a bit more research on that and get back to it during one of the next Q&As. Getting to the next one. So it's clear that most of the problems in history have been caused by money, politics, patriotism, and religion. But for most of the people, it would be impossible to live in a society without them. Do you think this would be a good approach to introduce the Venus Project to people? I hope I get your question right. You're talking about the problems of today's systems as well as basically our whole history that actually led to the problems we have today. And introducing the Venus Project is like you provide an alternative to the methods of the current system. So what you do is start introducing people to it, present them, spread the idea, spread the word, and make people aware of it. There is one thing that is quite obvious. The current system is not able to hold on much longer. What we will actually experience during the coming years is the collapse of the monetary system. What we are actually trying is to be ready for that collapse. So by the time this monetary system collapses, we have spread the idea of a resource-based economy widely enough to have people aware of it, so when they start over, they don't do the same mistakes again. So by the time the monetary system collapses, we want to be there and come around the corner saying, we got something prepared to solve your problems. So therefore, we have to educate ourselves, educate the people around us, talk to as many people as you can, make them aware of the idea of the resource-based economy, point them to the Venus Project, and try to spread the word. That's it. And hopefully that answers your question. If not, please say so. Here's another question, how the Venus Project tests its own hypothesis. Within the project, we advocate the use of scientific means and methods. And this is also something we apply to the problems we are about to solve or trying to solve. And now he's flooding me with questions, sorry. Let me just sort this out. Right, okay. We are not claiming to be the ultimate solution or the one and only system that is there to be. The only thing we say about the Venus project is, it is like, well, this is my personal guess, it's like 500% better than what we currently have. Later on, people will further develop the concept of the Venus project. It's not that we're saying that is the ultimate solution, it is the best we can think of now. So here's another question about regarding vegan food or raw food diet. That's been talked a lot about in the past. The Venus project is not telling you what to eat or how to behave or anything they like. So basically the choice what you're gonna eat is based on your background, on your personal choice and the level of your education. If you understand that the vegan-based nutrition and diet is healthier for you, you go with that. If you make the choice on sticking with meat, that's also your choice. And there's been, on one of Jacques' talks on the YouTube videos, he was actually proposing a scientific approach to that. Maybe in the future we will be able to do gene development that we can actually grow like beef tissue, and then you will grow your steak without having to slaughter any cattle. But basically, the Venus project is not telling you what to eat. That is still going back to your own decision.
One thing I'd like to get clear on what you said by saying gene development, I think you don't mean gene experiments like DNA altering and so on without a long-term study before of this and really, really deep considerations about anything that has to do with it. I think what you were referring to is the nanotechnology to build up molecular structures that then look like, behave, and are like real beef tissue, for example. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And one thing I want to add on this is, I think we can just start the development of real research about these topics when we have arrived at some point of the civilization that we want to achieve, because what we're dealing with there is then also a significant decrease of stress levels and so on. So this is a big impact of human health altogether, I think, at least for my opinion, how I understand it. And I think we can begin then to take into account the real causes for what we want to research, what we want to change, and how our body should behave, so to say. And all these things, they will be correlated then again in another, totally another environment. So we have to look at these things when we look at them in today's measures, also in today's environment. This is important, I think.
Right, you must have to understand that education will change, and therefore the level of understanding by the regular individual without a scientific background compared to today's background will be much higher. So the overall general education will not be comparable to today's, because you raise your kids in another way compared to today. Just on a side note, today many people pick their job by the rates of income. They don't pick their job because they like it, or very seldomly do that. Basically, the ultimate reason to choose a job or a profession is, can I make a living of it? In the future, you don't have to think that way. You can go and study as much and whatever topic you like. So let me get back to this question here. How is the Venus Project addressing topics like, for example, permaculture? Someone just said to me that there are two groups. One is the Venus Project design teams that deal with designing technical objects and technologies to use, right? And the other is the tech research team, which searches for all available technology and providing that to the design teams. So let me get back to that technical database. This technical database is not only there to provide access to members that are going to be on the teams doing direct development, But we also have people with an agriculture background. We have behavioral scientists. Basically, we have everything throughout science available in that database. So if we arrive at the problem that, let's say, involves hydroponics, aeroponics, or the like in regards to agriculture, we can go against this database and identify individuals that come from that background to be experts on that field in support of the team doing the development. So next question, I'd like to know if all this technology that is being tested and used in TVP is actually being published. So everyone can access to it and can also test and try them in their own country and personal lives. So what we are providing is, as the outcome and product of the design teams. First thing is we will provide that simulation, and this simulation will give you an insight, and I explained that earlier on. And you're also going to be able to download that. We have not yet decided on a means of publishing, but it will be freely available. And the CORCEN project itself or other design projects will be freely available by the time they are actually completed. Someone's asking whether the CORCEN project could be an MMORPG, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. You are mixing ideas. One thing is we are planning on developing a computer game, and that is a game within the resource-based economy. And we make that also freely available, and what it is going to be is not yet decided. Most probably will not be an MMORPG, because these are, if it comes down to costs, they are comparable to a major motion picture, and that is just not feasible in regards to the game design. We're currently looking into browser-based games and their like, but the decision on what kind of game it's going to be is not yet made. The next question, could the CORCEN project, when fully developed, give a better perspective to if RBE could work? So again, referring back to the simulation, this is what we are trying to do, to make people aware of how we are expecting the future, or our design for the future. And if so, would TVP support academics to look, peer review, and if needed, critique the CORCEN project and implementation of RBE? Again, we take our resources out of the volunteers signing up to the technical database. And we support everyone who is willing to support us. And if someone has objections against our design, he's free to actually join in on that database and contact us directly to work on that project as well. And if you feel you could contribute to the project, you can go and sign up to the technical database, which you can find on our main website. And then you can actually try to get involved into the real development. So next question, I would actually have you forward that to the email address. He's asking about what the test data is for the TVP hypothesis. And I don't know what test data you're talking about. Just picking that one question from the main chat. Yes, I've been saying we provide a solution. And we are not claiming it is the solution, because we are only aware of our system we are living in at the moment. And as an alternative, we provide the idea of the Venus project. So if we actually get to the Venus project's ideas, which is the resource-based economy, this can be later on developed into another direction completely, because maybe following generations come to the conclusion or arrive at the decision that another approach needs to be implemented. We cannot make that claim today, because that is based on future development. So we are not aware of this development at this point in time. So this is a decision for generations to come. So if there are not any more questions, let's get to an end. If you feel you have a really urgent question, I'm opening up the room, but I have a follow-up meeting as well, so I'm here to take like another 1 or 2 questions. So the room's open for speech now.
If I may, I would like to just get a quick plug-in for the linguistic team. Anybody wishing to help with the linguistic team, that means the translations, then please get in touch with linguisticteam@thevenusproject.com. We need people not just who speak languages, but we also need people who only speak English, because we need you to make the English transcriptions for us. So, yeah, the dog agrees. Bloody dog. So if anybody would like to do that, I'll write the address down for you.
Right, thank you, Sue. So any more questions? Right, Sue just post email address of the linguistic teams, so you can contact her or Ray using that address. Was that right? You share that address with Ray, right?
Yeah, it'll be me that answers you, though. And when I receive your emails, I send you on to the corresponding coordinator for whichever language, or the English coordinator in the case that you want help with the transcriptions. Everybody welcome.
Right, so if there are not any more questions that are urgent, I would rather have you come to next week's seminar, and during the week send your questions to question@thevenusproject.com, especially regarding questions that need a bit of research on our side, so we can actually prepare to answer those questions. Thank you for attending this meeting, and I hope we can see a lot of you next week again.
Thank you very much, Sven. Very pleasant to listen to you.